What is up? How y'all doing tonight? You know, it's just me right here. Just me right now. Anthony's going to join us. We got a big show for you tonight, but welcome to the Hoof podcast. We're live, and I'm feeling pretty good. You know, there's not many times where I get to come in here just solo dolo. Eric's going to be out tonight. He was traveling, so he's got stuff he's got going on. You know how it is. But you guys got me here. I think Anthony's on his way, and then we got a very special guest tonight. My guy Jake Burns from the Orange and Brown Report. But anyways, man, I'm excited to be here. How your week been? You know, let's do some little shout outs real quick. Reptiles up in here. What's good, my G? Don. What's up? Nah, just me right now. So just hey Sterling, you know, not hey guys. Don, my love. John's talking to Don over here. He's trying to get in the DMs. Paul says, is this even a question? Truck versus trailer. Well, we're gonna examine and talk about this whole Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen thing, because I think there's something to be said for both cases, both sides. So we're gonna get into all that. Let's see. You can't compare Mayfield to a generational talent. Well, I mean, you're going to hear it from somebody else's point of view tonight. But anyway, man, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be here tonight. This show tonight is brought to you by the Cover One Network. So y'all already know what it is. Y'all already know how we get down around here. It's the Cover One Network. We got shows just about every day of the week. You know, we're hitting you with the latest and the greatest of Bills news, topics, and subjects. Let me see what we got in here. Sterling, the man, but I'll never forgive him for wanting to go running back in the first. You know what? Life is about forgiveness, Wayne. You got to forgive me. Hey, sometimes, bro, you know, we miss sometimes, bro. And that's just how it is. It's how it is. But we learn and we grow and we move on. So yeah, I definitely wanted running back in the first round. But I am happy that we do have Gregory Rousseau. But before we continue on, this show is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Is the best place to play fantasy sports, including best ball, daily drafts, and pick'em. You can start drafting in minutes for a shot at big cash. And if you enter the promo code COVER1, you'll get $25 compared to what you deposit. So make sure that you guys, if you're doing anything with prop bets, player prop parlays, or whatever it is that you go check out the Underdog Fantasy app. That is for the Android and Apple Store for your info. And make sure you get in. Let's see what we got in here. Singletary will silence all. That's another debatable one, man. That's another debatable one. But thank you for everybody for who's in here, who's joining the show tonight. Anthony will be in here just a little bit, but why don't we just go ahead and jump into this thing tonight? This is what's popping. This is where we talk about the latest and the greatest. What's going on around the NFL? You know, since it's just me, I make the topic. So I guess I'm gonna be doing all the talking right now. So What we got here is let me put this here. This is what happens when all my homies in here. Zach Wilson impresses in week 2. And thoughts on Trevor Lawrence. So I definitely got to watch some of the highlights, some of the film from the game from the Jets. And I was really impressed with Zach Wilson's game. He had some moments where I was even surprised how he was able to manipulate the defense with his eyes. He had a really gorgeous throw. He kind of rolled to his right and just sling one. I mean, it was pretty right on the money. And, I know Jets fans are really hype about Zach Wilson right now. I mean, he was a very high pick. Very high pick. Zach Wilson, I think he's going to be all right. I can't hate too much. I mean, even though they're the Jets and whatever, the Jets suck and so forth. But when you look at Zach Wilson play, just from not a Bills perspective, just from as a fan or someone who likes to watch these quarterbacks use their craft, you definitely see reasons why the Jets picked him so high in the draft. I don't know what he's like as a leader. I can't attest to that. Nor have I even researched what he is in the locker room. After all, he did go to BYU. So he's playing with a different crew, a different talent of guys, that he's seen in the NFL. I would say the talent level that he has been surrounded with at BYU compared to what he's going to see in the NFL pales in comparison. He definitely has a lot of growth, but you had to be impressed with what you saw from old Zach Wilson. He seemed to have some command of the offense. His coaches and offensive coordinator raved about his performance and what he's been able to do in training camp thus far. So I think he's one of those guys that we're obviously going to be keeping a close eye on, seeing that he's in the division. We know he's not better than Josh Allen. He will never be better than Josh Allen. But I think being in the AFC East, I think it's one of those things where we have to look at these guys and be with a different lens, right? Just like we look at Tua. Tua had a good game. He's stringing together. He's looking more consistent this year. So we can't bag on him too much. Let's go in the comments here. What we got? Oh yes, ETN. Oh my guy. So y'all already know Travis Etienne was one of my draft favorites. He was one of the guys that I thought the Bills to draft in round 1, but he went a lot sooner than we all expected. But yeah, he has a Liz Frank foot injury, so he's out for the season. Man, you hate to see that from a young player, rookie season, and he doesn't even get to suit up to play real NFL football because he's out with an injury. Man, that sucks. It sucks. He says, "You had me sold for a month." That's my job. Wayne, that's my job, is to sell you on my ideas and my takes. That's why you guys are here, okay? That's my job. But sometimes, I would say I hit more than I miss, all right? Check the records, baby. I hit more than I miss. Let's see. What else we got here? Cody Ford in the run game. Jeremy, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, Cody Ford in the run game was dope. You could see the improvement. He's just able to move people. He looks really good on the move. One of the knocks on Cody Ford was his ability in space, right? He had slow feet, but once you get Cody Ford on the move, man, he's decking people. He's really, you could tell. After week 1 against the Lions, you could definitely see that continue to carry over. He's being consistent, and I think that's the biggest thing. I think your consistency and how you play means more to him and to this Bills coaching staff than anything. So Cody Ford, he's proven to me, he's proven a lot of haters wrong. He's proven that he can be a solid guard. Now, will he play left guard or right guard? It sounds like everything we're seeing is that he's going to be playing right guard. So that would be great for him. I think Cody Ford is going to be a solid starter this coming season. Let's see. No, I don't know anything about Jalen Phillips getting hurt. Let's see what we got in here. Oh yes, Lil Dirty. Lil Dirty. I do have that on the docket tonight. Lil Dirty is hurt. We don't know about Isaiah Mckenzie in terms of how long it's going to be. I think I read that he's getting an MRI. So that would suck if he's out, any length of time. But the good news is, I ain't gonna lie, I do like what Marquez Stevenson brings to the table. Obviously, it's not to the level of Isaiah Mckenzie from terms of a being able to win and separate. But I do like that the fact that you have a guy like Marquez Stevenson that can come in and do some of those gadget plays, and probably, Gabriel Davis would have to step up and do some of those things. So I think, as far as, that's one of the injuries that the Bills, I feel like we can sustain, is injury to someone like Isaiah Mckenzie. But we hope that it's not any extended period of time. Okay. We definitely don't want to see him out. Let's go ahead and get into our Bears recap. So I would say some of the takeaways from that game is Spencer Brown was amazing. Back to the offensive line, Spencer Brown really, really balled out. He handled Khalil Mack on multiple reps. Handled him. Akeem Hicks handled him. Spencer Brown's going to be that swing tackle that we all hope for. How much is he going to play this year? I don't know, but I think it's somebody that he's going to suit up every game. He's going to suit up. One of the things that I saw from Spencer Brown was his ability to move in space. He's 6'8" and athletic. He was able to anchor down. He was able to use his hands well. His feet were, I think his footwork was really good. Those are the things that you want to see from your third round rookie right tackle. He was dope. Loved everything I saw from him. Let's see what we got in here. I'm just sitting here riffing till my guys get in here. Another aspect I would say, I like what I saw from Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary for another week has strung together two, albeit short appearances, but he's strung together two solid games. He's being able to be decisive while he's running the ball, finding holes, and one cut and go. The touchdown that he had, I thought that was great. The fact that he was able to break it outside and take it to the house. I mean, those are the things that was rookie year one. Devin Singletary is what we're seeing this year. Now, I don't know if that's part of, is it just Devin Singletary's preparation and moving forward, or is it improvement from the offensive line? Is it the scheme? I think you have to look at all those things. I think Devin Singletary is playing well. And look who we got here. Oh,
hey,
you in the doghouse, bro.
Hey, I made it, man. This was a crazy night. Classes started this week. I have a night lab on Tuesday, and had to stay extra time to meet with students and go over a few things. But I'm here, and I'm ready to talk Bills, man. It's been an exciting week. Wow, a lot's happened today and the rest of this entire week. Wow, so I don't even know what you covered already, but where are we at in the conversation?
We're just talking. I was giving my thoughts on the preseason week 2 game against the Bears. Now, I was just talking about Devin Singletary, how he's playing well. You see the
toot, if you will, huh? Yeah, Devin Singletary playing well.
That's good. That's good.
It needs to translate. It needs to translate to the regular season. But hey, that's what I've been saying all along when it comes to running backs. Pump the brakes. The guys we got are fine. They will improve. They will do what they need to do. We're never going to be a run-first team. But what Singletary has done with his opportunities so far in the preseason, he's looked better. Like he is ready for the regular season. Almost like the Devin Singletary we saw in his rookie year.
That's what I just said.
The Rock.
That's what I just said.
So
that's what I just said.
We're on the same page. See, there you go.
Yeah.
Coming in hot already.
So also mentioned Spencer Brown play well. And if you have anything on that, because I'll keep going about some of the things that I liked.
Spencer Brown, I mean, rave reviews from people who really know what they're talking about when it comes to the offensive line position and media people. How many times do we see like, oh, we all thought they had a good day and the media ignores them. But NFL.com, I think, had an article where they said that they gave him an A grade for this performance, and he did both tackle positions, which is what his position is now on this team, the swing tackle. So he does need to be able to do that. And wow, the performance against guys like Khalil Mack and a defense like the Bears, who put their starters out there against him, and he was able to show out. So big performance by Spencer Brown, kind of saying, hey, put himself on the map. I was a 3rd-round pick, but I'm here to play, and I can do my thing.
Yeah, no, he looked really, really, really good, man. Mm-hmm. And to the point of, the rookie class, I mean, it's just preseason, but you see, I mean, if you don't see the potential, you gotta look harder, because these guys they're playing really good, man. Marquez Stevenson, we're talking about Isaiah McKenzie being injured. I mentioned Marquez Stevenson. Mm-hmm. Seems like he might be able to come in and help in that wide receiver room. I think he has a spot on this roster on the 53. I think he could do some of those gadget plays that Mckenzie does until he's healthy. We don't know the extent of the Mckenzie injury, but right. Marquez Stevenson, punt return, 78 yards to the house. Hey.
Yeah. It was later in the game, not against necessarily Zara, but that's what you need to see. He's got to win this job. He's got to earn this job, a spot on this roster. And, there's something to be said about depth as well. We've talked about this. You and I agreed, and Eric had something to say about the rookies, but, the depth is what matters on this team, right? It's all about the depth. If somebody goes down, injuries are inevitable in the NFL. When somebody goes down, the next man up needs to be able to do the job as consistently. There might be a drop off and he's not, an all-pro talent, but in this case, that's the same thing. Isaiah McKenzie has experience in this league. We know what he can do as a receiver, as a change of pace back, as get him the ball and he'll do a gadget play. Marquez Stevenson now has the chance to step in and be that return guy and get those extra touches and win a spot on this roster. And I think he absolutely will if something's wrong with Mckenzie, because he was already fighting for that spot, and now opportunity arises and he's got to capitalize.
So, and as we wrap up the recap for the, this Bears game.
Did you give props to Trubisky?
No, do we really need to? I mean, Mitch he balled out. He played well.
Yeah,
he played well.
Listen, 4 drives, 4 touchdowns.
I mean, the whole team played well. I mean, it's not just Mitch, but yeah, I mean, it was you could tell that they had a purpose and a mission, and it was to stick it to the Bears, because they mopped them hard. But again, how happy can you be? Because I mean, it's just preseason, right? I mean, for him, like it's one thing if he was doing it against all their starters through 4 quarters, right? That's one thing. And it's one thing where you're seeing vanilla defenses, and it's just a different vibe. But for him, I'm sure that was a big mental hurdle to stick it to his old team. But Gregory Rousseau, God dang. Gregory Rousseau, again, he's doing it. I mean, the guy, look, what more do you want out of Groot right now? Like, you love to see it. I mean, dude, I think
Fallen.
Here's a question for you before we introduce our guests here. How many sacks, and you guys can comment on this in the chat, how many sacks do you think Gregory Rousseau will have this season?
The way he's looking right now?
Come on.
God damn, double digits is not a scary thing right now.
Double digits.
Remember, just 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how nobody has double digits with Sean McDermott, because he usually changes it up, and maybe there's 1 or 2 or 3 guys that have reached 12 or 10 or whatever. And it is a 17-game season, so I'm taking that into account a little bit there. But this is going to be his thing. So even though he might only get 30% of the snaps, he's going to get some quarterback pressures out of those 30% of snaps or whatever they end up being. So I'd be right around 10 is the high mark. But I'd probably guess, 7 or 8, that's huge. Remember, again, when we talked D-line, I said Jerry Hughes would lead the team. I still believe that's the case, because he's just the leader on that D-line, and he's where everything is going to revolve around. But damn, I love it. Sky's the limit with this kid, and that's exactly what you want to see when he's bigger than any human on the field, literally. So
yeah, it's how he's winning. right? So one of the knocks on him was, oh well, he just kind of cleans it up at the end, like he just, 15 sacks. He just lucked into 15 sacks. These are things that people were saying. He kind of just lucked into it. He's really not beating guys off the edge and so forth. And it's like, man, he just wins differently. He wins with length. He takes great angles to the quarterback. He's really good at containment. I mean, he's a smart player. And I think you can't you got to give him his props.
I've made jokes about him being so tall. All he needs to do is this to affect the play. But in the same vein, all he needs to do is fall forward toward the quarterback, and he's already momentum is going to carry him in that direction. But yeah, you're right that it is his technique right now looks well beyond a kid who only played 1 year and is just coming to the NFL.
Yeah,
and that is huge. And I'm sure Sean McDermott's mouth is watering at what this kid can do and how he's going to be with the team long term. So,
all right. So before we're gonna move on here. Okay. Now, okay, I got a good buddy of mine. Okay. My guy Jake is backstage. He's coming on. Okay. Listen, y'all. I've been on his show a few times, and the Browns fans have treated me with the utmost respect. I mean, they've been super cool to me. So I'm going to ask you guys in the comments section to be super cool with him. He's this guy, I'm telling you, man, he knows his stuff. He's with the Orange and Brown Report. He does stuff with 247 Sports, CBS. I mean, the guy, he when you talk football, X's and O's, my guy Jake Burns knows his stuff, man. So we are always happy to have him on the show. And he gets to come on in right now. Mr. Jake Burns, what's good with you, bro?
What's up, guys? That was way too kind of an interview. I'm like ready to run through a wall for your podcast. No, that was nice of you. Thank you, man. No, I'm happy to be here. I really have said this to people I talk football with, and even talk football with my wife. Like, Buffalo is a place that we in Cleveland have always related to, not just because of the struggle that the franchises have gone through before they've gotten it right, but just people that really give a shit about football, like really genuinely care. Mm-hmm. And they're not persuaded from the struggles their franchises had. They're not afraid of it. They accept it. They embrace it. And I just really hope this can continue from Cleveland side to maybe make this a sort of pseudo conference rivalry over time, because just two great fan bases, man. That part of it is, people that sit in the cold weather and it's a family thing and it's generational and all that stuff. So, and it's like before Cleveland fell apart in the 90s and late 80s, there were some great Buffalo Cleveland games, man. So that stuff is really cool to me.
Yeah. It's nice to meet you, Jake. I'm Anthony, by the way. Good to meet you. I'm glad you could be on with us and talk sports. And it's funny, you brought up the same exact thing. One of my new colleagues whose office is literally across the way from me, she's from the Cleveland area, and she's a diehard Cleveland sports fan, and she's got her Brown stuff up. And I went over and I talked to her about football, and we bonded over the same thing. Man, all those years of suffering and pain, and we know the names. We know the guys on our team. We know who we're drafting every year. Versus casual fans who have had luck over the years, living in Denver, for example, that's one where they just take advantage that their team is good. And when they're not, they kind of ignore them. And they're like, oh, they aren't any good this year. I don't know who the quarterback is or who that guy is. And, even my family, who is also Giants fans and, Cowboys fans or whatever it may be, their passion is not the same as the intensity of Bills fans and my fandom. And I've always bonded with Cleveland sports fans and especially Browns fans over that. And even though I'm not a huge fan of the guy they got at quarterback right now, which we will get into, I'm sure. I don't know if Sterling warned you about that, but the teams themselves, the mentality, certainly the same kind of attitude.
Yeah, just a ton of relatability, man, and that part of it's really cool. Cleveland's had success around the city in LeBron's arrival and departure and a re-arrival and all of that. And the Indians have had great runs too, but no matter how well other teams perform in that city, it's always a place that will be a Browns town, and that part of it is specifically unique to Cleveland football. So a renaissance in that department really helps people understand how important it is to Cleveland. And thus, I just always have respected Buffalo's. I have a good friend of mine I went to college with in Southeast Ohio, who was a New York guy, big big Bills fan and played football with me, and we kind of connected over those conversations. And I've always just really paid attention to them kind of as a secondary team, not just because of like, the two team struggles over time and all the long playoff droughts, that stuff is whatever, but just two franchises with people that really care about it in almost a sickening kind of way, right? I know the Bills Mafia stuff is real, and Cleveland has their tailgating pregame stuff in the municipal lot where the stadium used to be, and that stuff gets crazy there too. So yeah, two places that deserve the success that they're seeing right now. The people that are running the places, the front office, the coaching staffs. It's a unique time, and it's funny, almost ironic that they're running into each other at the perfect time like this.
So Jake, am I hearing a little Bills fandom in your voice there?
Oh yeah, man. I pull for Buffalo to win. I'm tired of New England. I mean, I'm an Aaron Rodgers guy. I'm not a Tom Brady guy. So like I was ready for New England to be done, and I'm ready for Buffalo to get it right. They've gotten it right. They're going to keep getting it right, and I'll pull for them every game they're not playing Cleveland. That's just a fact. Look, I just support them.
I'll say this about that Cleveland team. All right, I'm not a fan of their quarterback, as I've mentioned personally, not his play necessarily, but what I said over the last 2 years, and I do my NFL predictions over the whole NFL. And when everybody was hot on the Browns to make the playoffs and go to the Super Bowl and all that, I was the reality check guy. I'm like, look, they need to show me they can do it. They haven't showed me they can do it. You have two other great teams in that division. Good luck. I don't think they're going to do it. And I picked them to go. I think I nailed their record that season and did not pick them to go to the playoffs. Then last year, they proved it to me. All right. Baker was better than I thought he was going to be. I don't think he was a star, but way better than I thought he was going to be. And certainly that whole team, the organization, we're going to get into it.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm going to
hold on. So here are the rules. Here are the rules tonight. Okay. You can hate. All right. But listen, like we have to look at it from, we got to look at it from an objective point of view, because obviously Josh Allen's our quarterback. Jake likes Baker Mayfield. That's his guy. Now, Jake, you could tell us your thoughts on Baker Mayfield before we get to the quarterbacks. So I want to make this make sense. Okay.
That's why I was finishing that point, because I was not 2 years ago. I was not on the Browns train. Last year, I said they still need to prove it to me, and I picked the Ravens to win the division. This year is different. They have what the Bills had before them: stronger leadership, a better coach, the right people in place, a good core sign the right guys to fill the spot. This year is the Browns have to win the division, period. They are the best team in that division to me. I am picking them to win that division. I expect them to win that division. And if they don't, it's going to be a disappointment for that team. So I'll start there. That is where my expectations are. And just to clear up the conversation about Baker, we know that I am definitely a Baker hater, but it's not his quarterback play or his stats. It's never been about that. It's his attitude and his persona off the field and the things he says. So I'm not necessarily rooting for Baker, but I am picking the Browns to win that division.
Yeah, we can talk about that. I mean, I'm a Cleveland guy. I grew up a Cleveland fan, but my job is not to be a Cleveland homer. I'm objectively covering this football team to the best of my ability. Are there going to be times where, if the camera's not on me and I'm not typing on a keyboard trying to explain something to people and my fist pumping in the background? Well, of course. I mean, I'm at my core a Browns fan, but I can't sell things to fans. My job is to report what happens, the decisions that are made, the things that go on, not slanting it to get people to believe my opinion. It is to stay purely objective, which we'll dive into that with Josh Allen and Baker. We'll talk about that stuff. But we can backtrack. If you want me to go on backtracking it, I can. That 2019 Cleveland team that was getting a bunch of hype was not ready from the respective quarterback, the way he went into that whole thing to the moves they made and the things that they ignored. They were not ready to handle the pressure, all of it, and it backfired in the worst way. Now, I think that 2019 experience is going to parlay into 2021 and beyond success because of what they went through, what they learned from it. Mm-hmm. But that hype, the whole thing surrounding it, which was cool because for so long there was nothing to care about with Cleveland football. Yeah. I don't regret any of the hype that went into it. But they were ill prepared for what came because you had to be there. You had to see the decision, the way Freddie Kitchens handled his staff. And if you guys know one thing, people talk all the time about, how does a player or how does a coach get his players to respect him? Well, when I'm talking to Todd Monken and he's the offensive coordinator, and it's like a week before the regular season opens, and I ask him, hey man, what's the dialogue here between you and Freddie? Are you calling plays? He calling play? We haven't really discussed that yet. I'm not sure what I'm going to do for my, like, they were just so ill-prepared. The things that were leaking out about Freddie were just terrible, about the way he was accepting and suggestions, and the way he was passing it to players, the preparation models, all of it were bad. Cleveland had the Hugh Jackson era where they decided to keep him around for Baker's rookie year and forced him into hiring an offensive coordinator. I don't know how far you want me to trace this back. I can go on about it now if you want to. I mean, we can dive into it. Like there's just there's layers to it. Like, they're making a decision, and they were close to taking Josh Allen. They really liked him. Like John Dorsey, the GM, they liked him. That wasn't phony.
Okay,
like there was genuine interest in taking him. Like those rumors were real.
So that rumor, I think, came out the week of the draft. It's what I guess that's probably when I first saw it. And I was just like, because I was either Rosen, I wanted Baker Mayfield first, and then I wanted Josh Rosen. Josh Allen was like fourth on the list because I wanted Darnold, then Allen. When I heard that, I was like, yo, like, they're really going to take Josh Allen. Like, what was, can you talk about what was going on during that time? Like, why didn't they pull the trigger? What was
I think John Dorsey liked him. I think that he liked a lot of the traits, and I think the Browns had a huge divide. Like, if as Buffalo folks, you don't pay attention to Cleveland like I'm forced to, like, vice versa. I don't pay attention to the huge intricate details of Buffalo you guys could pass along to me in this podcast. But like, they have Paul DePodesta. If you ever watched or read Moneyball, the movie, the book, he changed the way baseball is played. He's an active part of this process. The Browns had a huge analytics push around the time they hired their coach. The analytics, the Hugh Jackson hire, the analytics hire told them to hire this guy named Sean McDermott. That's who they pushed for.
Wow.
They really pushed for it.
Really?
Jimmy Haslam decided to hire Hugh Jackson. So that decision was made. They made that push there, didn't hire McDermott, went after Hugh Jackson, hire Hugh Jackson. So that happens. They have now a huge divide, which has been the problem with the Browns for a long time, where they have a bunch of people in Jimmy Haslam's ear telling him one thing, and then these other side of things telling him another. And so there's been a divide between the staff of people who do run data, who are heavy analytics, and the Browns are on the forefront of this stuff, as you would expect from a guy like Paul, he's an absolute genius in all respect from from a baseball to football perspective, a very smart guy. So they didn't hire him. They keep Hugh a third year. So they go into that draft process, and there's football guys who like Josh Allen for obvious reasons. There's data people who are afraid of Josh Allen, again, for obvious reasons. And they have a clash. It ends up being a split decision, and they end up collectively coming to the decision to take Baker. Now, John Dorsey will tell you it was Baker all along, but there were real discussions about whether they wanted to take Josh Allen because Josh fit a lot of what you see. I mean, he looks like a guy that they've been dominated by Pittsburgh for a decade.
Let me ask you this.
So
From what you just described, I have this question. First of all, statement, who can Bills Mafia, what charity can Bills Mafia donate to thank whoever did not hire Sean McDermott? Because thank you. We definitely need to get that going. And number two, on a more serious note, do you think that Baker was the kind of consensus, we're okay with this guy? Maybe he's our number two. My number one was Sam Darnold. Yours was Josh Allen. Neither one of us is getting our way, but all of us have Baker as number two. So we're all consistently, and it's not that much of a step off. So we're all consistently on the same page when it comes to a guy like Baker. Is that
the analytics the analytics for Baker were strong. I mean, you looked at his Oklahoma. Not only that, his tape was pretty good, and there were things that you could overlook on his tape because of how Oklahoma played. But the analytics side were strong, and the people who love football and old school football, how it's played, the leadership, bravado, you could tell that he could win those people over too. So I don't think there was any dissension to take Baker when they decided to pull the trigger on Baker, but I do know that they really seriously only looked at Josh Allen otherwise. They were not that interested in Sam Darnold.
And that's who I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, they were not as interested as everybody let on Sam Darnold. and they were not as interested in Josh Rosen as some people thought they might end up being. It was really those two guys. They spent a lot of time with Josh. They went to his pro day. They liked him. My brother-in-law lives out in Saratoga, which is an hour from Laramie. So I was around Laramie when they were after Josh had been selected by Buffalo, and I'd asked a lot of questions to people out there, and they said the Browns were out there a lot. So they were really seriously considering, but they decided to go with Baker. And we'll talk about it here, but I think it worked out really well for everybody. And I'm not talking just results based on where we sit in August 24th, 21, but tracing how the Browns structured things when they drafted Baker. I just don't know that the version we have of Josh right now would be the version that Cleveland would have of him. I just don't think it would have gone the same way. So we'll talk about that stuff a little bit. But yeah, that's a lot of the backstory on where the first pick was and why the Browns selected who they selected and the dissension that was there until they finally hired Kevin Stefanski in 2020.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it matters where you get drafted. And when you draft a guy like Josh Allen, let's all be honest here. How many actual people can sit there and say, "Oh yeah, we knew he was going to be what he is right now"? I don't think there's that many people out there that can really say that and be honest about Josh Allen will be.
If the Bills thought he was going to be who he is right now, they would have traded up to 2 to take him. Like that's the fact. It's okay. It's okay to say that it worked out well for your team. You know, that's okay. Who knows who the Bills would have taken if they had the first pick in that draft? Sometimes it's all right to be like, shit, luck happened and it worked out and he's with us and it all shook out the way it was supposed to work out. So yeah, I think the Bills did fine with where they were picking. Again, like the same thing with people talk about how, Baltimore selected a 24-year-old tight end ahead of Lamar Jackson. So spare me on that. Like if they knew Lamar Jackson was going to be that guy, they wouldn't have messed around and let him, have to trade back up to pick 32. So again, like it worked out okay, but there's a lot of revisionist history stuff that can happen with this whole thing. I think you got to look at it for what it is and appreciate where guys have gone with the opportunity that they've been presented. And listen, we're going to talk about some of the shortcomings that Baker's had. And I'm not here to argue Baker's better than Josh. I can't come on your show and argue that. That's not realistic right now. I'm just being real. I think Baker's better than he's given credit for because of situational things, which we can talk about, but he's not playing. He didn't have as good a year as Josh Allen did last year. So that's just a fact. And if I were to come on here and do that, that'd just be an asinine decision. And I'm not talking about just pissing your fans off. I'm just talking about like, you can't do it right now.
No. And that's kind of, and to your point, like when I come on your show, I really do try to be very objective about Baker Mayfield and what I see from watching the film. And Baker's not a bad quarterback, and I know for Buffalo fans, it's real easy to sit here and shit on Baker Mayfield just because he's not Buffalo, right? He's not our quarterback, right? And he's kind of, he looks like he's matured over the years, but he's kind of said some dumb shit or whatever. And that's cool, right? But when you look at it, it's like, preparing for this show, when you look at the statistical output, these guys are very similar. So my question for you tonight, Jake, as we get into this discussion, first of all, what are your overall thoughts on Baker Mayfield? And then what's the pulse from maybe the Browns organization in terms of how they view Baker Mayfield moving forward here?
Yeah, I think you got to trace it back. So if you look at when they picked him, to give your folks a background on it, they picked him when Hugh was here, and Hugh was forced. Now, Hugh Jackson was a successful coordinator in Cincinnati. He was a hot name. Like, it wasn't just Cleveland trying to hire Hugh. So he gets the job. He's forced to, due to the past failures, they'd gone 1-31 the 2 years before they selected him, I'm sorry. They decided to, hey, we'll keep you because we fired Rod Chudzinski after a year. We fired Mike Pettin too early or whatever. We don't want to pull the trigger too quick. So we'll keep you, but you have to hire an offensive coordinator. We really want you to hire Todd Haley. The background is that they thought they were going to have to fire Hugh by midseason, then they wanted Todd Haley to take over the role. So they didn't even let Hugh pick his guy to be OC. They brought in a guy who had no real desire to work with you and was kind of pegged behind the scenes as, you're going to take over when Hugh gets fired because we know it's coming. He just can't handle it. But we don't want to be seen publicly as a franchise that can't support a guy for a third year. I'm telling you, it was a mess. It was a real mess of people pulling at Jimmy Haslam's ear. And that's what he arrived in. So he arrives at a franchise who's 1-31, has no real talent. Like, they just kind of gotten Jarvis. They have this young tight end, David Njoku, who's okay. They got Miles, but he was coming off a injury-plagued rookie season. like there was really nothing there to make you think this team was going to figure it out. Like Jarvis is clearly a player with restrictions. You guys know him from being in your division. He's not fast. He's got some wiggle, but there's a culture change that had to happen there. So, but they don't do it the right way. They didn't bring him in fresh with a coach who could help him and nurture him and a play caller. So they hire Haley. Mid-season hits. They're 2-6. They fire Hugh. Not only do they fire Hugh, they hate Todd Haley so much they fire them both. They say we're going to keep Greg Williams, Mr. Bountygate, as our interim head coach, and pair him with Freddie Kitchens, who's only ever been a tight end running back coach. So Freddie's able to put together, through the help of, this has been discussed a lot. They closed 2018 well against a bunch of really poor defenses. They performed well, and they thought, okay, we're going to hire Freddie Kitchens because whoever was helping formulate these game plans, Baker performed well. He had a good rookie year. 27-12, broke some records, played pretty well. All things accounted for, like if you look at Pro Football Focus's metrics, he was really solid on some things that were unstable, getting out of the pocket, making plays on the run, some of those things that you can't really project and consistently say. A guy who performs in rhythm is going to always be projectable rather than a guy whose scramble drills are kind of random. You guys know that. Like you just can't always predict where things are going to shake out. So has a good rookie year. They say, hey, we're going to keep this Freddie Kitchens guy. Again, Freddie never been an OC in his life. He never controlled anything considerably in his life. A lot of people gave credit to what that success was in that last half of 2018 to Ken Zampese, who was the quarterback coach who they'd brought in from he had pretty decent success in Cincinnati. He wasn't a great OC, but they thought a lot of the game plan, the wrinkles that were really fun, helping them win games, were due to Ken Zampese. So 2019 happens, and Baker, look, I think Baker thought the NFL was going to be easy. I think he didn't think he had to work. I think he thought he could say whatever the hell he wanted to say. He had some comments on Duke Johnson's contract negotiations that were out of line. He was saying stuff on social media that he should never have been paying attention to. He was responding to Colin Cowherd's. He was doing things that an immature football player does. And he thought 2019 was going to be easy. Like the NFL is going to be easy. I got Odell now on the squad. I think this is just going to be easy for me. I'm going to dominate. Well, he showed up about 10 pounds overweight. I think everybody started to notice it. He did not seem as committed as he needed to be. You mix all of that in, which again is Baker's issues, not saying he's without blame. There had to be some maturity there. He was humbled. He made a ton of terrible decisions. He started to fade out of pockets. He was forming bad habits, and he really became like step back grounded as a quarterback. Like he needed that in a sick kind of way. He needed to understand that the NFL was not going to be easy. And it wasn't. It was a terrible situation from the coaching staff from 2018 to 2019, terrible leadership. They didn't have the right people in place. The preparation was bad from top to bottom, and it filtered through the team. And that's why they went 6-10 that year. It was terrible. Not just because of the coaching staff. The coaching staff was absolutely, it was terrible, guys. I can't put it into words, but Baker didn't help. He didn't help anything. Mm-hmm. So then 2019 to 2020 happens, and they do hire the right guy. They finally get the two separated divisions out. They had actually, when they hired Freddie Kitchens, Paul DePodesta and his staff wanted to bring in this guy named Kevin Stefanski, who hadn't even been an OC yet. They're like, we really liked. They interviewed him twice. They liked him. They recommended him for the job. But John Dorsey wanted to stick with who they saw some success with at the end of the year, so they decided to hire in Freddie Kitchens. So they like Stefanski enough. And if you recall, you guys probably don't because you don't pay attention enough, but John DeFilippo was the offensive coordinator in 2019 for the Vikings. In 2018, he got fired like week 14. Stefanski took over that role. He had about 4 or 5 games as the OC in Minnesota. He then takes it over, didn't get hired by Cleveland, takes it over in 2019 full-time. They lose in the second round. They go to New Orleans, beat the Saints, lose to the Niners in the second round of the playoffs. The Browns hire him. They bring back this young GM, 34-year-old Andrew Berry, who had worked under their analytics department of Sashi Brown before, went to the Eagles, was the EVP of the Eagles front office. So they finally got a nice grouping of guys leading it. They say, the thing that's hard is Baker comes into 2020. He's locked back in. He looks like he's in shape. He's not responding to the dumb stuff. He's saying all the right things, being very quiet in the background, leading. And everybody you talk to, he's saying the right things. He started slow, as I would expect him to start slow. He's got 4 different play callers in his 3 years. So he comes in with very little preseason, no West Coast offense terminology in his entire NFL career. None. And if you know anything about West Coast offense, timing, rhythm,
it's
all
everything.
Of it, boom, it's everything. You got to be on top of it. So mix in, they did a good job. So what the Browns did, they finally said, We've screwed up everything for Baker along the way. And again, I swear to God, I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I call him out when he's played bad. I've written some critical articles of him, but they realize we've screwed this up every step of the way. How can we actually commit some financial resources and a head coach play caller dynamic to help him? They finally did that. Kevin brought in an offense that can help a quarterback. It's to accentuate his skill set. They did that with Kevin Stefanski. They spent money on the offensive line. They actually drafted a top 10 tackle, Jed Wills. They went out and signed Jack Conklin. They made a move to get Wyatt Teller, and he developed at the right guard position. And they were lucky enough. Again, lucky is a weird way of saying it, but the Kareem Hunt situation, as unfortunate as it was, allowed them to bring in a cheap player, and he's a top 10 NFL running back too. So Kareem, again, all credit to him. He's done the right thing since that situation happened. It was terrible, but he's done all the right things since he's come back. But that's how they fit a really good offense around him. And they said, instead of making Baker try to, with all of the things he's trying to deal with, get to where he's trying to go, let's try to let things become easier around him, which they did a nice job of. Baker started the year relatively slow. First 6 weeks were not very good. As again, I expected it. I just thought that there were going to be lumps in the road with no preseason, very little camp, couldn't get together face-to-face. But then after the bye week, they took off, and he was the second highest graded quarterback from week 17 through the divisional round of the playoffs. So Baker has done some things that I don't blame anybody for saying he's bad. I don't blame anyone. And you can point to the talent around him now, all of those things. But the Browns have finally given him a chance. I'll give him credit. I think that what Josh Allen has been able to do has been miraculous based on the talent that is around him when he started. That they have done right by, and this is a credit to Buffalo. This is not a knock to Josh Allen. He's been surrounded with the support people around him to help him continually grow. Brian Dable has been there to help him. If you had changed OCs along the way, who knows where it goes? But Dable is a big part of that success. And then they said, okay, we feel like Josh is starting to change his mechanics. We like how he's throwing the football. We like the decision-making process. Let's put some guys around him now. Let's put Stephon Diggs around him, and he takes off. So I don't think Baker's near that level yet, and I'm not sure that you can cut costs on the offense to say, okay, Baker will make up for the slack here or there. But the progress is not always linear with quarterbacks. Baker had a lot of things he had to understand at the NFL level that he did not get at Oklahoma, that he failed to get in his first 2 years because of all of the turmoil. And now he's finally in a position where moving forward, they can truly evaluate whether this young man can have the necessary tools to carry them if they have to cut costs down the road. If you can't pay a Jack Conklin at right tackle, or you can't pay an Austin Hooper at tight end, can Baker make up for those things? So we'll see. But the Browns have finally done what the Bills did right. And that's such a credit to the Bills. Y'all got it right from the jump with who you put around him support staff wise. Then as that became a more comfortable thing for Josh and he was able to use his legs to help him out. The good thing about Josh is if the throwing isn't quite there, the progress isn't quite there from a throwing perspective, this guy can still run for 700-800 yards and 10 touchdowns, and that keeps your offense as a net positive. And then you start adding in all those pieces that make his life easier, and you see the progress. So the Browns are way behind on that for Baker, and Baker didn't help. Baker did some dumb stuff on his own too, but I do finally feel comfortable with saying the Browns have not butchered things around Baker for the first time in a long time. So they're giving him a chance. The problem is they kind of micro-condensed this thing and missed the first 3-year window. Now they're trying to make a hard decision about this with a condensed schedule to figure out if you want to give him big-time money. So that's why 2021 is massively important for Baker.
I think you definitely hit on a few things that I was going to bring up, or a lot of things that I was going to bring up, a couple being the comparison. First of all, the biggest thing I've disagreed with on this show so far is when Sterling said that Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield have similar numbers. As a scientist, I loathe that, because you're looking at total statistics and you're saying, oh yeah, look, they have the same touchdowns and the same yardage. That is completely out of perspective, right? The number one thing I praise Josh Allen for is he's grown in a linear fashion every step of the way. He's gotten better at everything. Whatever people say are his faults, he gets better at. The interceptions, gone. Not enough passing touchdowns there. Runs too much, gone, down, right? Everything, statistically, everything you look at with Josh Allen has gotten better. And you could not contrast that anymore with a guy like Baker Mayfield. There's no idea. Nobody on planet Earth, I don't care if you studied this man every day of his career, knows what Baker Mayfield is going to be or who he will be. He's totally been inconsistent. We don't know. Maybe it's the Browns. That was great perspective, Jake, of the journey he's been on and the things around him. And there's no way to calculate how much of it was the bad coaching, even though when I was knocking him, it was always for, you have the greatest running back in the NFL. You've got the greatest receiver in the NFL. You've got a good offensive line. You've got all these things around you, and you suck. So it's you. You're the problem, not everything else around you. So maybe it was the coaching in those scenarios, and I was wrong there. But with his numbers and the things he's been able to do, maybe it's the play calling. They're not opening it up. There was a comment in the comment section that said the Browns haven't really opened the offense up for Baker Mayfield or haven't really unleashed Baker Mayfield. And I'm not down with that either, because it's like, okay, but you still, with the weapons you had, I don't care if nobody's coaching, you should still be playing well. Like with the things he's been able to do, with the talent, there's no denying draft day, Baker Mayfield came in day one to play NFL football. Josh Allen was not ready day one to play NFL football, but he did everything he needed to do to get there and beyond. Baker Mayfield, again, just the inconsistency is what I fear most with him. And obviously what the Browns fear most with him. They might believe in him now as a team leader. They know how he is in the locker room. I think you touched on this as well. One of the points that I was going to make is I think the Browns are best when they don't depend on Baker Mayfield. And the opposite is true with the Buffalo Bills. We live through Josh Allen. You should. You have a star player like that. Every play should be through Josh Allen. You know,
hold on. Hold on. You're wrong about that, because if you go back and look at the statistics, they prove the Browns were, I believe, 7-1 when Baker Mayfield had a quarterback rating over 80. I think he was like second or third. Yeah, that's pretty damn good.
Let me finish. Rating. How do you calculate quarterback rating? I'm not talking about the plays.
What I'm trying to tell you,
relying him to make every play. You want to run the ball more. If he's 9 for 10 with 2 touchdowns, did he have a good game?
You're not giving him credit. You're not giving him credit.
If he's 9 for 10 with 2 touchdowns, did he have a good game? Is that a good QBR? Did the Browns win that game because they had 3 rushing touchdowns and their defense played well? They probably won that game.
You're talking hypotheticals. You're talking
QBR. That's nonsense right here.
Okay.
80 QBR does not tell you if he passed 30 of 40 times and made completion, or if he passed 9 of 10 times with 2 touchdowns. That's my point.
I would just say
you don't need to run the plays through Baker Mayfield. You let Baker Mayfield be the quarterback, the leader, but you don't call every play. You don't call his number. You let the run game be the run game, and you let Baker do what he does. You let him run when he can run. You let him do a few passes, but you do not pass the ball 40 times a game consistently with Baker Mayfield. Obviously, your opponent and things like that matter when you're calling plays and stuff like that. But my point is, I don't care who the Bills are playing. The Buffalo Bills are passing the ball 40 times a game because you have Josh Allen.
I would say that
not be the Browns' approach.
If Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt were in Buffalo, they would probably run the football a lot too.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. It's not Baker's fault that he has really good running backs.
Yes.
Like, that's not a thing that he should be punished for.
No.
I mean, it's like, again, like it's a personnel thing. The thing that people don't understand is how much they went to throwing the football in the last half of last year. I don't think people want to admit it, but Baker carried them through the finish line of last year. Like, he was an effective quarterback for them through, and they were playing from empty. They were making a lot of decisions that were based on how Baker played for them. So again, like, I will say that Baker has not been as consistent as he needs to be over prolonged stretches. 2019 hurt him significantly for the right reasons. 2020, I can lay out for you. In 2019, let's keep it 100 here. The right tackle was Chris Hubbard. The left tackle was Greg Robinson. Greg Robinson's in prison for, taking, I think, marijuana across the border. That guy's a perpetual failure. They didn't have an answer at right guard. They had 2 answers on the offensive line. So there's a narrative that the Browns have had a really good offensive line for the entirety of Baker's career, and that's just not a fact. 2020 was a really good offensive line, but they've had shaky parts of their offensive line for the first 2 years. Nick Chubb is going to erase a lot of your issues in the run game. So you're like, well, Nick Chubb ran for 1,500 yards in 2019. Well, go watch Nick Chubb, and I'll put Nick Chubb up against anybody. Like, he's going to create, he's the LeBron of running backs in terms of 2 beats ahead, seeing things unfold, making people miss. Like, I guess I guess what I'm getting at, and again, I'm not here. I need to remind your folks, I'm not here to say Baker's a better quarterback than Josh Allen, but the circumstances have to be dug into with some of the things with Baker. Like, I really do think you're right. Like the Browns, and I argue this with people, there are contentions of factions of Browns Twitter who say the Browns should be throwing every damn play. Like, and that's people who look at EPA and they look at the data and they say the Browns should be throwing every damn play. And that's not football to me. That's like Texas Tech stuff. And that's a different conversation. But like, if you have two really good running backs and an offensive line that's really good and a scheme that fits what they do well, of course they're going to run the ball well. And they play 7 or 8 teams on their schedule. Like they'd be dumb. If Josh Allen, swap them out right now, put Josh in Cleveland and put Baker in Buffalo, and I'm pretty sure they would still hand the ball off to those running backs quite a bit because they're really good. So I think that the Browns are built right now to have balance, and Baker proved that he could handle in the last half of the year. What they said, here's what they did. They said, we're going to really open this up the last half of the year, partly because Nick was coming back from injury. They weren't running it as well. Nick had missed 4 games in the middle of the year, and they said, hey, we need to see if Baker can handle this, because if he can't handle this, then he's not our guy. Like, if he can't handle us putting a lot of the weight on his shoulders, then we need to move on now. But he did handle it really well, to his credit. But he has to put together 17 games. But he's also not going to throw for 4,500 yards. They're not going to ask him to play the way Josh does. And that's kudos to Josh. Like, I think Josh is phenomenal. I'm not here to say Baker's better. I'm just talking like the respect side of Baker. But like, he's the dude, man. Like, he's able to do that for you guys. And I think, if you drafted Devin Singletary and he turned into Nick Chubb, I think the offense might be a little different. I think you guys would agree with me. If your draft success at running back was as good as Cleveland was with Nick and the ability to bring in Kareem, you guys would probably want them to get the football a little bit more here and there. But you're structured in a way that you don't give a shit because Josh can handle that stuff. And it's worked out really well in that regard. But I don't hold Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt over Baker. Like, just because Baker isn't forced to play that way doesn't necessarily mean he can't. He started to prove it in the last portion of last year, playing really good football. But I think sometimes people think that like Baker has to have these things to find any modicums of success. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. And if you go back and watch all of those games, if you pick them apart, like I'm sure you guys haven't watched every single Browns game and every snap. Like I haven't watched every Bills game and every snap. Like, They didn't play the way people think they did the last portion of last year. So, again, Baker has to keep proving it. He's got to put together 17 really good games, but he's not going to throw the ball. He's not going to be a top 15 thrower in the league, guys. Like, they're not going to put that on him because they're too good at other things and they seek balance. Like, that's how Kevin Stefanski's wired. That's how the system's wired. But they can, given situationally, they can do that, and Baker can handle some of those things. He's not on Josh's level because he doesn't have extension ability that Josh does. He is not going to keep people off of him in the pocket. Like I see Josh Allen as a modern day better than prime Ben Roethlisberger because the arm is real. It's realer than Ben's was, but he can extend plays, he can run. So, but can Baker, the thing is, like, Baker's not trying to be Ben Roethlisberger. He shouldn't be trying to be Josh Allen. He should be trying to be Drew Brees. That's the goal for him. How can he get there? The way you get there is you think through the game quicker than anybody else does. You find your Sean Payton, right? You find your Sean Payton, which he has that in Kevin Stefanski, developed such a good rapport, such a good offensive understanding that you guys can play together for 10, 15 years and be out in front of defenses. Baker's a better athlete than Drew Brees was in terms of extending plays here and there, but Baker's got to win from the pocket. And that's how he's got to play in the NFL. And I think he started to understand that the last portion of last year, sitting in more, deciphering defenses, pre-snap to post. Like, they're getting there, but it's not at a level that people should be going into this year thinking that he's at the level of top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL or top. He's a fringe top 10 quarterback right now. In stretches he has been. There have been stretches where he has not been. I think he's every bit a top 10 guy when he plays the way I think he can play. So we'll see. There are elements to the stuff with Baker where I certainly will tell you that he's played poorly in stints and he's been to blame, but there are some perspective to certainly have that I don't think many people totally understand. That's what I try to paint that picture a little bit for folks.
Yeah, and I appreciate, you killed it, and I appreciate that because I think, again, my whole purpose is to show our fans and whoever's watching the show that, like, you can't just always look at the stats. but also the stats do tell a story as well. And I think when you look, you have to look at the right things when you look at quarterback play. You know, and one of the things that I saw Baker Mayfield down the stretch, you saw the Browns, they started doing throwing from play action. They start using him in the play action game. And I think that really helped him, you know, in terms of locating receivers, you know, throwing really good, having really good plays consistently. And I think, you know, I think they unearthed something for that Cleveland offense. I think you're going to see more, you know, people say, well, are they going to unleash Baker? I don't necessarily know if they're going to. Maybe you can answer that question, but I think they found a concoction for success for him to be a good quarterback. And I think that people don't give him enough credit. I think he's a really good quarterback. I don't think he's going to be great. You know, maybe I think his ceiling is probably Kirk Cousins, right? But I mean, we'll see. I mean, Kirk Cousins is not a bad quarterback statistically.
No. It's early for all these guys, man.
Right.
I mean, Josh has had one really good year, and he was a fantastic football season, and I don't see any reason he won't be good moving forward. But we're trying to define these guys 3, 4, 5 years in. What are these guys going into year 4? Let it play out. Like, that's the thing. I complain about this all the time, about how quickly we're trying to define success of quarterbacks is like.
Well, you're talking about the contract from a contract perspective, or from
no,
he's talking about developmental,
where they go in their career. Right. Like, we don't have to cap these guys right now. They're so early in the process, and it's like, you know, when you give a guy a second contract, that doesn't define what he's going to be. You're giving him the contract of what you think he could become and continue to be for your franchise. So, like, while I think Josh is fantastic, I think he's a top 5 quarterback going into this year. It's in the realm of possibilities that he could regress. It just is. He could have a bad year. And then you could have that discussion that's like, well, was he consistent enough? Josh is only imagine it, guys. And again, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but there's always like, well, you think it's optimism central leading up to the year. There's no denying that. I did a pessimistic podcast the other day about what things would suck if they didn't go right for the Browns, because you do have to think about what things could go right and couldn't go right. Like, if Josh takes a step back, what's the narrative going to be? Well, 1 year wonder, one good year in 4 years. Like, that's the stuff that gets put out there that you're like, you know, that's not necessarily true. Like, there's some stuff with Baker that I don't think is necessarily true. Do I think he needs to tie 17 really good games together? Yeah. But I also want to see him tie 17 good games of the actual parts of going into a season that help a quarterback too. Like, I don't think people understand how hard it is to play in 4 offensive systems in 4 years. I really, truly don't think people understand that. And it's everything you have to learn. It's so difficult. And he is not a guy, again, who, if you are trying to remember the play, repeat it, where do I go? What's my check? He's not athletic enough to get out and run to save his life when he screws up those things. And that has an impact. Like, instead of a 5-yard scramble, it's a 5-yard sack. Like, that stuff is a real thing. So I'm interested to see where Baker goes. And there are going to be people that don't agree with me. That's cool. But I'm interested to see, when he gets the levels of consistency around him he has now, where he goes. I think Baker is on an upward trend, whether people want to admit it or not. And I think Josh is on an upward trend, and he's going to keep growing. I don't have any reason to sit here and tell you he's not going to be having another phenomenal year. So that's where I'm at with both of them.
Let's talk elephant in the room then, with the contract situation for Baker Mayfield. What do you think he ends up if they sign him before the season starts? You know, I don't know where the rumors are, but the Josh Allen contract, if you weren't following that situation, it came out 2 days before, hey, if we don't get this done this week, it's not getting done. So we kind of said, as Bills fans, oh, shoot, it's probably not going to get done until next offseason at this point. And then it happened because they met that deadline. So with Baker, maybe it's the same thing. You don't know. But let's say that contract happens before the season. Do you think, because of what you were talking about with the escalation of quarterback contracts and just in general how the league goes, do you think it's going to require either A, more guaranteed money than Josh Allen, or B, a longer extension than Josh Allen, or somewhere in that range? Or did Josh Allen set the bar and now you know, okay, you have to be – because obviously if you're representing Baker right now, you're saying, well, Josh is the bar. That's what you have to give us, you know, and obviously the Cleveland's saying, well, he's not Josh Allen, so we'll give you this much, or we'll bring you here. And if they wait another year, the second part of that question is, if they wait another year and Baker does well this season and wins the division and gets to the playoffs and you know, then what happens? Then they have to pay twice as much.
Hold on. I got to take the air out of the room a little bit. Okay, first of all, there's just 2 points here. First of all, Greg mentioned there's something pretty. He said many quarterbacks would have already completely busted out with 4 different systems. The fact that he hasn't is honestly a positive indicator of his future potential, and he's absolutely right there. Yeah. And then he goes on to say, Jake is the second best guest you guys have had on lately. So we have had on Greg. He was on our show. So Jake, he's saying he's one-upping you, bro. So
hey, Greg's great. I can't argue with that, man. I got just like Baker needs to know where he's at. I know where I'm at, my friend. So, yeah. To your point about the contract, I remember I was kind of reading a quote about Josh saying, or maybe it was him, or maybe it was his age. I can't remember, but he's like, "Yeah, we're just going to table this thing and we'll get." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Then he signed. So, listen, I think what's happened here, guys, is the Bills have 4 years. Is this year 4 for these guys? See, they have 3 years of
year 4.
3 years of really good data on Josh, and they see a linear progression upward. And they say, we have not changed. We don't plan to. I don't know if Dable gets a head coaching job down the line. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. I'm sure that Sean McDermott is a smart dude and is already grooming his replacement in-house. They just feel great about the system, structure, performance, the legs, all of it, that they say we have given him a foundation. We've continued to expand the talent around him. We've seen when we put the right talent around him, how it takes off. There's little to no guessing about Josh. Yeah, could Josh take a step back? He could, but I don't think, even if he takes a minor step back, it's still a very good football season. There are going to be peaks and valleys for any great quarter. Go back and look at Tom or Ben Roethlisberger. There's years where they're completely clean, and then they have like a 24 and 15 year mixed in there. It's just going to happen. It's just like, you're not always going to be great. And I think it's going to happen to Pat Mahomes at some point too. He's going to have a dip in there at some point. But I just think that the data they had between the coaching staff all being together, improving the players around him, they know what they have. So there's little to no guessing. With Baker, there is more guessing because Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry have only had exposure to him for a year. And that matters, right? Like, they like him. They do. They really like him. But they say, okay, we have to protect our right now and our future. And Baker's probably thinking the same thing. Like, he's probably thinking right now, if I signed, I could the Browns could convince him, maybe could take 35, 36 a year, something like that. But Baker's also a believe in nobody believes in me guy. I'm going to go out and prove it this year. I'm going to ball. I feel great about this system. I'm going to show out, and then I'm going to sign for 40. And these quarterback contracts suck. Can we just say that? They freaking suck. Yeah. The NFL's got to do something about this, because what it's doing on a different tangent is it's changing the value of everybody around. Like, there should never be a question of signing Nick Chubb. Like, there should never be a question of giving him a second contract, because these quarterback contracts eat up so much money that it forces you to devalue other positions that mean something in the NFL. Like, that's a different conversation. They should do something like 50% them on the salary cap or something, but it's costing other really good NFL players chances to make a living, and it pisses me off. But the situation is the situation, and I think the Browns are saying, we want to protect our now and later, and say we need another year of really impressive data from you, Baker. If you go out and you have that impressive year, we'll pay you. We'll meet you where it needs to be if it gets to that point. So, the Browns people on the my side of things in the Browns world are like, well, get out in front of it, pay him early so you can save a couple million. And I get that. I get it. You could maybe sign him for 39 and then you don't have to sign him for 43 or 44, whatever those numbers are. I don't care. It's like, the Browns are probably viewing it from a front office as, we want another year of data. We want you to show us. And at the end of the day, if they have a great year from Baker and they have to go sign him for 41 or whatever, we won't care, because he'll have played well and we'll know that our guy is our guy and we'll feel good about it. The same way you guys probably thought the same thing. I don't really care if they don't sign him before. I'm just not a big worry about money guy, because I can't make any decisions on this stuff, and why waste hot air on it? Like, I just don't think you guys would have cared if Josh would have went out and had another great year and you had to sign him for more money. You wouldn't have cared, because he's your guy. Like, he's your guy. Who cares? Pay him whatever it takes. So that's where I'm at. Yeah, cool. If they could get it done early, that's great. They're not going to. There have been no real discussions of date yet. They won't get it done before the season. They'll meet after the year. And I don't care what it takes. If he has a great season, I don't care what it takes. Just get it done. If he has a mediocre season, that's where things could get like kind of strange, because does he sign? Because I still think you can win with above average quarterback playing the NFL. It's just different team structure. So that's a different conversation we'd have at the end of the year. But yeah.
Do you think that's the pulse of the general fan base at this point? That was going to be one of my questions in the middle there. And that is, and then yeah, if he does kind of have maybe not a mediocre season, I don't know what you would call last year, inconsistent season, let's say, a couple of games where it's like, okay, you're the reason we lost. You could have been the reason we won, but you weren't. Okay, you won us. Okay, you're consistent at the end and you got us to where we need to be, but we didn't win the division, or that's really going to muck the waters for them. And that's what I'm worried most about with the Browns, especially if Baker is not the reason they're winning and is not, again, not the guy, not in those moments, the opportunities he's given to win games doesn't, but say the Browns still finish, with 11 wins and win the division, but it wasn't because of Baker. Then what do you do? And I agree. I think that's the worst case scenario, where just to keep a quarterback, you have to pay him $40 million at this point, because somebody else will if they don't. And
sure,
you're stuck in his fifth year. You can't go into his fifth year without a big contract. Yeah, that would put them in a really tough spot, I think.
There is an outcome where he does another repeat of last year, which is good enough quarterback play, but maybe doesn't flash top 5 potential. But again, to me, everybody wants your quarterback to compete for an MVP, and that's ultimately the goal. I'm with that, but there has to be a medium there where we're getting really good quarterback play, good enough quarterback play, but we don't have to pay him $40 million. We can pay this guy $35 million a year and 33 or 34 or 35 and still have enough money to add pieces around him. So I don't know where Baker sits on that. He should have, the data is the data, and he'll have to look at it harshly with his agent and all of it and have those conversations. I don't think the Browns want to hard reset the quarterback position. I don't think anybody does, guys. It's so brutal. The Browns went through such a brutal stretch to even find a guy like Baker. So, I don't know what that looks like. If he has another sort of above average year, then I could see them trying to find something in the middle. But if not, the Browns will keep their long-term future open, and they'll probably go down the path Washington did with Kirk, which is we'll franchise you and keep you around. And if he does put together a great year, which again is very much in the realm of possibility, he could put together a great year. It could click for him. And I think it could. I really do think it could. Then you start maybe having those, Dak Prescott type conversations where it comes together. So I think that they have options. They'll be very driven by data. They'll be very driven by keeping their long-term future secure. And if they can't come to a middle ground, I think they'll play the franchise game and as long as they can. And we'll just have to see. For now, we think he's going to have a pretty good year. There's no reason why he shouldn't. This team shouldn't have plenty of success. But the reevaluation, I think people right now are thinking, well, he either gets traded or cut down the line, or he's going to have a great season. He's going to have a great year, and he's going to have all of these accolades, and then they sign him to big money. But there is a very good question, Anthony, which is right in the middle. Like, what if he just is good enough?
Yeah.
Like, is he good enough? And what kind of contract do you give a player that's good enough? And I think that if they do get another good enough, a Jimmy Garoppolo type of deal could be out there for him, where it looks really good on paper and it could pay him really well, but there's a ton of tie-ins to prove it. You got to prove it at this point, that point through the contract, or we can get out of the guaranteed money. So that's an element.
I think that's probably the fair play. And what is a good season for Baker Mayfield? So 2018, he had 27 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. 2019, I believe, was like 22 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. In 2020, he had 28 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. As we were looking at Josh Allen last year, we had a lot of projections. We were thinking, okay, maybe the guy can get around, if he could get like 35 to 40 total touchdowns. What, in your opinion, is a good season for Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, if you're looking at last year, let me pull it up in front of me. I'm typing on my keyboard. Apologies to your listeners.
Are you good?
They threw the football 486 times last year. Could that cross over the 500 into the 550 range? Maybe. I think like a great year for Baker would be keeping his interceptions down below 10, keeping those turnover-worthy plays down. He had a great uptick. The thing that makes me feel really good about Baker, and if you talk to the folks, I don't believe in everything Pro Football Focus does, but I've seen the behind the lens of what they do with quarterback rating, and I think they do a nice job of evaluating in rhythm, structure, play decisions. And Baker was really good that last portion, 2/3 of the year, and in rhythm throwing decision making, and that is a sustainable metric year to year they have found. So he was really good in that last year. If he carries that over with the big time throw percentage stuff, which is stuff that I like a 35-8 year would be a great metric year for him. If he can pop over 30 touchdowns, creep closer to 4,000 yards again. You know, like his 2019, he threw the ball 534 times. Like if he could reach the 4,000 yard mark, 33, 34 touchdowns, something like that. But again, it's they run the ball so well, guys. The opportunities might not, and not only opportunities, but like the need to do it might not be there because their defense has been terrible, guys. And I'm telling you, terrible last year. They're playing Anderson Dejo, Carl Joseph in the second. They were so bad last year personnel-wise. They weren't much better in 2019 personnel-wise. They've added Clowney. They've got Miles Wright off of the COVID issues he had late in the year last year. They've added some real good pieces, JOK, Greg Newsome, Denzel Ward is back, like John Johnson. Their defense is fit to be better than it's ever been in Baker's career. So I think, again, what might happen is they play a ton of games from out in front where they jump out on people. They get a couple scores early and they play grinded out football the rest of the game because that's what they need to do. So I'm not so certain he will jump up over 4,000 yards or he'll cross 30 touchdowns. But what does the decision-making look like? That's what's important to me. It's decision-making sound. Is he delivering the football accurately when given opportunities? That's the stuff. In a dream world, he crosses the 30 touchdown mark, hits close to 35, keeps the interceptions down below 10, and he approaches the 4,000 yard mark. I just don't know if he'll get. I mean, like how many times did Josh throw the ball last year? I don't have it up in front of me. Maybe you guys do. I can quickly pull this up.
I got it. 572 times he threw the ball last year.
I just don't see Baker throwing the ball 570 times just because that's not what they need him to do. Like you guys need him to do that, and that's great. That's cool. That's how you're structured. I just don't know if Baker's going to have 100 passes more than he did last year. They could because they come into this year where the beginning of the year last year, they ran the ball a ton because they just didn't know what the hell they were doing offensively yet. They didn't, if you don't really feel comfortable with your passing game and everybody being on the right page, you're going to hand the ball off to Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
Right.
Kind of A plus B equals C. So they might see a slight uptick, might get close to 500, but is he going to throw it 572 times? I just have a hard time seeing that. So I just don't think you're going to see, like, if you put the data next to each other, it looks like you're going to have to look at like yards per attempt, completion percentages.
Right.
Josh creeped up. He finally got it up over 60 and approached 70 last year. Baker needs to get it closer to 68, 69. That's a big metric for him. Those things will be important for him and increasing his EPA per play. The thing with Baker will be the hidden stuff, the stuff you got to go to Sports Info Solutions to find, right? Because they just play a different game right now. And if you sign Nick Chubb to the contract they just gave him, you're not going to not use him, So you're going to use those running backs. They're going to be very balanced and they're going to close games out running the football as they try to do. And they'll have a good defense and they should win plenty of games. And I know you mentioned, Anthony, at the beginning of the year, the beginning of this podcast, that they should win the division. They should be right in contention. Baltimore's really good. But yeah, I think they should be right there and it would be disappointing not to win it.
Jake, Glock Roach wants to know, has Baker ever hurdled anyone? He wants to know. He's dying to know.
Gosh,
no, I don't think it would. Can
Baker Mayfield fly? That's what
it would not end well for him. It would be, those guys who get flipped and tossed up over in vertical. Now, Josh is he's a unique dude, man. He is a unique dude who doesn't, like his 40 time wasn't blazing, but he's got football speed. He's a stride guy. He can do things that you're like, that doesn't totally make sense, but it works for him. He's really like a more athletic. We watched it for 20 years, what Ben Roethlisberger was able to do in Pittsburgh. He's a more athletic version of that with a stronger drivable arm. And if he can continue to, and I know you guys know this, he has those plays where he reverts back to those Josh of Young, decisions where he'll hold on to the damn thing too long. And it's like, just Josh, it's okay to eat a play. It's okay to go to second down, man. Like we can go to second down and be cool. If he can keep slowly getting rid of those things, the sky's the limit, man. I'm not bitter that the Browns didn't take Josh Allen. At the time, it made plenty of sense to me. And I will continue to say this over the course of my covering this team. If they would have brought Josh to Cleveland, it would be a different version of him. They weren't ready for that type of quarterback. And they weren't ready for even Baker, but Baker's been able to somehow survive it. So, could Josh have survived it? Maybe. But it's just like they needed a certain type of quarterback that could play early, and he was able to last it out. But I full-on supporter of Josh. I will be honest, I didn't believe in him. I'm one of the many 98.9% of Twitter that did not believe in him. I didn't think it would work out, but you got to eat your words at some point, man, and say that it did. And I really liked what I saw from him in 19, and I thought he could have a good 2020 season. I was taking him early in fantasy drafts. I really liked what he could become. and he has proved a lot of people wrong. And I couldn't be more happy for him, and I couldn't be more happy for your fan base, man.
So one last question that I have on Baker Mayfield, and you kind of touched on this, and so did I, saying that I am not a Baker fan. Is he in, the persona he's given off to the media, at least for somebody like me who does pay attention to how teams are playing, how players are doing, draft position, all that kind of stuff, and then seeing his post-game press conferences or his interviews with the media, it drives me nuts. And every time I see one, I'm like, I hate this guy. He is so selfish. He's a jackass. He'll throw anybody under the bus. It's all about him. He didn't screw up. Everybody else did. Every time I see him talk, I
don't get any of those vibes.
Like,
you must have saw a couple clips or so. I think
that
there was a younger, immature version of Baker that I think the first 2 years crossed in front of people. Like, he's a cornball. He'll say that I woke up feeling dangerous. Like, he's just like, sometimes he'll say some things that make me cringe. Like, really, dude? And like, really?
I think part of it is after that first good season, which his rookie season was really good. He got all the commercial deals, and then they had all that hype, and he was everywhere on my TV. And then it probably got to him, I guess, when they weren't seeing the success he wanted. And then, so where I was going with the question is he actually as big of an ass as I think he comes off to be? Do the media hate him as much as I do? Or is he, does he not have a good relationship with them? Or is it just a persona thing that this is something that I'm seeing that Browns fans and maybe those who actually follow the team and are around him enough do not sense? And was that a change last year? Like you were
nobody hated seeing Baker progressive commercials more than me in 2019. Just like we were driven insane by him playing poorly, and then I got to watch him make a corny progressive commercial. Sweet, that's awesome. So yeah, I mean, that any of those guys though are going to take those opportunities to make money. So you get paid some cash to do an ad, they're going to do it. I do think that Baker had a very bloated version of who he was after his first year, and he needed to be grounded, and 2020 humbled him in a lot of ways. Like, I really do think it did. And I think there were times where he was being questioned as a leader, and justifiably so. Again, a guy who came off his rookie year and then was making the points about Duke Johnson's contract, where he needed to go. The team had to have a meeting around those things. Like, he wasn't doing the right things, and he was saying some things in the media that were kind of crazy. And I think he said some things that rub people the wrong way. I think his arrogance, and again, his arrogance is how he's gotten to where he's gotten. He's a 6'1" and 6 foot and some change quarterback. Nobody believes in me. Shut up. I'm going to prove you wrong. Like, all that stuff. But eventually you have to reel that back in. And you got to say, this team took me first in the draft. I wasn't a 6th round pick. People do believe in me. They've placed an entire franchise in front of me to lead. And I think 2019 showed him that he can't do it the way he's always done it. I can't be an a-hole to people. I got to get the respect of people around me, and I got to go out and earn that respect. I can't just talk my way through that. And he did. He shut up. He started answering questions the way they're supposed to be answered, taking blame, doing the right things as a team. This is on me. This is on us. This is on all of us. Like, those things you want to hear, we saw all of that in 2020. And I think that's why I'm more optimistic than ever, because trust me, there were stretches where in 2019, the preseason, and even after some games in he was doing some things on social, like people that pick at him, like Colin Cowherd, and he would respond. And it's like, why are you responding to these people? Like, what are you doing out of it?
That's part of what. So somebody, I want to address this comment here. Baseless hate. I think what you're hearing right now from Jake is telling you it's not baseless, especially at the beginning of his career. Where my hate comes from is that persona that he gave off. Even when he was in college, he was the one guy in this draft when the Bills were looking at quarterbacks as well as the Browns. I said, anybody but Baker Mayfield is who I want. Do not draft that guy, because the persona he gave off when he won the national championship and all that, he was an ass. And I did not like him, and I still don't like him personality-wise. I don't know him, obviously, but just that persona, that impact that he left on me, versus a guy like Josh Allen, who always says the right things, who's always growing in the right direction, who will never be caught in a position where he's being stupid or something to the media like that. It's just totally different personalities. And it's okay. I'm admitting that I don't like him for his off the field persona and personality. I've never said anything about like that about his a quarterback play, except for the fact that it's been inconsistent and we've built on it from there. But yes, I'm not a Baker fan. Sorry.
Well,
Yeah. I think that there's been levels to the team that have grown to like him more. I mean, I think Baker's always been a guy that people like. The things that rub media the wrong way sometimes are parts of things that they like about him. They like the confidence. He's a leader of men. Like all that stuff's very real. But there have been times where he's been challenged, and he needed to be challenged by a locker room because you're saying the wrong things, man. You're handling this wrong. You don't talk about other people's money. Because Duke Johnson was holding out and was like, well, everybody should be here. And and like that rubbed, this isn't Oklahoma. Like you don't say that. This is a grown man's opportunity to make money in the NFL. And that rubbed people the wrong way. So he's grown. I think more than anything else, Baker, he goes to Texas Tech, he plays right away. He goes to Oklahoma after he sits out a year, he plays right away and dominates from the beginning. He thought football was always going to come to him in an easy fashion, and he believed that he had figured the NFL out. He didn't make any quotes about the game being really slow, like from Tua and Justin Fields over the last 2 years. But he definitely thought he had figured it out, and things were just going to come easy. And he didn't have to work. He didn't have to be the first guy in, last guy out. He thought it was just going to work out. And I think he was humbled in the biggest way he could ever be humbled in 2019, and it's driven him to become a better person, a better quarterback, a better leader, and all of those things you want to see. I have nothing. I would tell you if I was nervous about those things still, I would tell you I'm not nervous about those. What I'm nervous about still seeing is 17 games of really good quarterback play and proving it. I think it's something he can absolutely do. I was so encouraged by how he played week 7 through 17 and into the playoffs. I feel great about it. But he's just got to do it. But I think the man Baker Mayfield, 25 now, it might even be 26, actually. He came out 24. So, yeah, the man Baker Mayfield, I think, has grown a lot. And I think that is why a big reason the Browns are starting to feel better about it.
Yeah, and let me say something here. Josh Allen has a little bit of that in him as well. I know Josh just comes from he does it a different way. Like if you look at Josh's rookie year, he's out there flexing, he's out there talking shit to people. If you kind of see some clips, Josh is just as much as competitive as Baker Mayfield is. Baker is just more real about his feelings, the way it comes out. Like you said, he has that chip on his shoulder. But the really cool thing that I enjoy when you play sports, you see this. This is what you do. Like we would talk crap, in the layup line, like, hey, this dude, he can't hoop, but if you put me in front of a camera, I'm going to say, the other team was this and that. Josh he looks better doing it.
But Josh doesn't draw any of that attention. Like Josh will do some of those things and he believes in himself. If Josh has an ego, all quarterbacks have an ego,
exactly.
But he doesn't say the things that make people mad. Baker has a way, and I don't know if it's like a short white quarterback thing, but like he has a way of pissing people off, and he would say things that would make people mad. And I continued to say in 18 and 19, I'm like, it's not a big deal, but any bulletin board material you can give people is going to matter. The NFL is a motivation business. It is. It always will be. And if you give teams more reason to dislike you as a quarterback because of arrogance or bravado, too much of it, they're going to be out there to humble you more so than if everybody liked you. There's not like that little, extra 1.5% or something to make you pay. It's not going to show up. And like that stuff matters. And I think that Baker finally turned a corner with that, where he wasn't this self-loathing dude who was just trying to like make this thing about him, like, the Hugh Jackson stuff, where he would point at Hugh Jackson when he went to Cincinnati, the things that made national rounds. Like, why do you care? Like, let it go, man. And I think he finally did. I think he finally did. I have not seen any of the nonsense from his first 2 years. He seems completely driven on. And I think a large part of it, guys, is Kevin Stefanski. Like, these dudes, like your guy, Sean McDermott, they are so mature. They're Ivy League guys. There's a huge Ivy League connection. They're no ego guys who don't care who gets credit. It's the work. The work is all they preach. And it's rubbed off on Baker. And I think that I would imagine Kevin, Alex Van Pelt, who they brought in as the offensive coordinator, sat him down and said, hey, man, you need to shut the hell up. Here's what you need to do to get from A to B. We're going to help you, but we're also not afraid if you can't do it the way it's supposed to be done, we're going to move on. I think there was a real come to whatever your religion is, come to Jesus mode. Like there was a real moment there for Baker where they said that this is how you're going to handle yourself if you want to be. Getting that money that Josh Allen got, they're literally putting the keys to the franchise in your pocket. Like, that's how much money you make. That's how much sway you have in winning football games. So if you want to do this, you got to do it the right way. And I think Baker is doing them. It's just he got off to a slow start in that regard, from the personality perspective, from the humbleism perspective. I guess I made up a word there, but like those things, he was behind the. So as mature Baker was as a quarterback coming out right away, he was not ready to lead a franchise right away. He wasn't. He was not ready to do it the way it needed to be done. So while you talk about quarterbacks who enter the league and you say, okay, man, this guy's ready, NFL ready day one. He's got it all. He played the college system that was multi-read, all this stuff. And Baker was ready to come in and sling the rock on Sundays. He was. But he wasn't ready for the mental aspect of the NFL yet. I think that's a big part of why I feel better about him now.
Yeah, it's a tale of two quarterbacks. Josh Allen, he was ready mentally, but he didn't have everything he needed between the ears, like learning the actual game of football, just because of the lack of reps and not the opportunity and talent around them and coaching. So, these guys, I like their trajectory path. I think both quarterbacks here can be good. Jake, you have been incredible, my man. Like,
awesome.
Dude.
Thanks,
awesome. You have to, we got to have you back on because our Bills might find you in the playoffs.
Let's hope so. I was going to say, let's do it. Why not?
That would be fun. I will say, as of right now, Baker is 1-0 against Josh Allen. So take it for what it is.
That's true. That is true. We're gonna have to fix that. But
there goes Jake, all that goodwill you built up in this show.
No, because I go on his show talking crap.
It's a good game, actually. It's a great game.
But Jake, why don't you tell our fans where they can find you?
Yeah, we write at the OBR, which is called the Orange and Brown Report. It is a 247 CBS venture. So the Orange and Brown Report is our website that everything gets posted on. And then I'm at Jake_Burns18 on Twitter. And then I do some film concept breakdown. I really got my idea from Eric at Cover One to start the whole thing. I started with film breakdown content. So shout out to Eric, man. He's one of the best doing this thing. The OG. I had a lot of conversations with him back in the day, but I was with Cover One for a minute there. I joined Cover One for a little bit to help, and then the OBR came along, and I was like, all right, I got to go over here and do this Browns thing. But yeah, no, I'm at. Then there's the OBR Film BDN, which is our Twitter account that breaks down film content. So yeah, man, we'll do this again. If these two get together in the playoffs, it would be a blast, and I would be more than welcome to come on, and I'm sure I'll hopefully have you guys on to talk on my podcast as well.
Certainly, man. Spitting the knowledge. Everything you said was awesome here. It was, I don't know if you saw the comments section, but people were lighting it up, loving what you said, because that perspective you brought, that honesty, that analysis, all on point, and I really appreciate that.
Likewise, guys. Thanks for having me, man.
Well, that is a wrap for the Hoof podcast tonight. We put in a long one, folks. Hour and 30 minutes, but it's been great. We're going to have the season's coming up. And we only got 1 week of preseason left. So we're going to be locked in all season long here on the Cover One Network. We are the Hoof Podcast, and we out of here.
Go Bills.